thank you. Really nice to see a lot of familiar faces here and some new ones too. And yeah, I'm not an expert, but we have organised over 30 events this pandemic. Let's hope we don't have another one. But we've really pivoted, as Lena said, to running online events. So the purpose of this is just, I'm going to give you 5 minutes on what we found works and also what we learned, because we made some mistakes. And I think in the sustainability community, it's really important that we share, our mistakes so we can all move forward faster and more efficiently. So that's it, really. I'll start with just kind of giving you some thoughts or our thoughts about what are some of the challenges. And of course, we recognize this, anybody, we speak to about online events, been on a Zoom all day. It's kind of, do I want to spend another hour and a half on an online event? And then there's kind of, okay, I've signed up, but where's the link? And I was going to join, but it all became too hard. So actually, I'm going to do something else. And then there's the competition for our time and our headspace. The question is why would join an event where there's so much online content? I could just watch a TED talk, or I could watch a Netflix documentary. So why come to the event? So you have to make it, I think, compelling. And then there's, right, you've got people to the event, they've clicked in, but then they get distracted, an email pops up, somebody walks in the room, and so it's very easy to get distracted. So how do we keep it compelling throughout the journey of the event? And then there's also the, I could just leave without people noticing. And that's just the reality of online events. It's much easier to press a link to say I'm out than walk out of a presentation. So, and you have to realize that people are making that decision all the time. Is this worth my time? Am I learning? And as soon as they say no, they can leave. So there's some of the challenges that we've been considering. And of course, then there's I want to meet people again. I just want to meet people in person. But that leads me a bit to the advantages, which is in this type of forum, you can actually meet a lot of people, as we've just done, make 3 new people. It's quite hard to do that at the coffee machine or in a regular face-to-face event. It's also good for people who don't like networking, because it's quite hard to go up to people that you don't know and just introduce yourself. And some people are good at it, but it can be hard. And then there's the problem of, okay, I get speaking to somebody interesting, but how do I stop that conversation? Because it is interesting, I like this person, but now I've got their details and they've known me. I'd actually like to go and meet somebody else. So online in these breakout groups, you don't get stuck in conversations like we've just done, 3 minutes, and you've got the opportunity to carry it on or not. And of course, there's the obvious things. I don't need to travel. I don't need a babysitter. I can join from wherever. So there are advantages, and we want to make the most of those. So if we can just go to the next slide. I want to talk a bit about how do we keep people engaged, because I think that's the crux of it. And what we learned early on is every 5 minutes, break it up, change it up. Don't have people speaking for a long time. 5 minutes is quite a long time even to listen to somebody online. And give people challenges. The polls are good. Like in this picture, you could see we asked everybody to find something that made them happy. And it just changes your mood as a participant to go and be proactive and do something. So we often do challenges, which we find works very well. But I think probably the most important advice I could give you is start well and end well. And I read a really good book that was called Never Start Funerals with Logistics, which sounds a bit odd, never start funerals with logistics, but what it's really speaking to is in uncomfortable situations or times of stress, we often end up talking about logistics because it's easy and it's safe. And actually, for an event to engage people, the start is so important. So I mean, we're not doing it perfectly, we've just learned, but, the music I thought was really good tonight, playing a video, and the way Lena went straight into a poll. So it wasn't like 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting on logistics about how we're going to run tonight. We went straight into it. And I think that becomes memorable for a meeting. Start well and also finish well. I think it's really important to end on time. and this meeting's an hour and a half. That's really long enough, I think, for a lot of online meetings to go. And how do you end well? And it's not just the moment you end the meeting, but it's also the follow-up. It's the email you send out afterwards. It's sharing the participant lists. So I think for me, that's the thing I've learned is almost the most important. But a few other things: working in small groups, one-on-one breakouts. So it's much less exhausting talking to 3 or 4 people than it is talking to a screen of 40, 50 people. It really doesn't work. So often we break people into small groups a lot during our events. And then just starting on the right hand side of this, polls are good, surprises are good, things you don't expect to happen. The moderation is really critical. Like in a lot of our face-to-face events, we brought a lot of visitor moderators in. And that's always nice. You see a new face, people have a different angle, people expert on the topic. But an online event, it's much more important to get the transitions right between speakers. That's more important than what people have to say about the content that's delivered. And that's why we own the moderation in a small group of people who do a lot of these events, because it's those transitions that are really important. And we can talk a bit more, and we will in the breakouts, about different tech that can be used. We've used Slido, Mural, Google Docs, obviously a lot of Zoom. So that's my kind of thoughts about how do we keep people engaged. And then if we go to the next slide, it's also, and any project manager will know, it's really important to plan well. And in order to have no gaps in an online event, we use this template which has timing very clearly laid out, and then what elements, what's going to happen during that time, and most importantly, who's going to speak, and then what materials. So like the music we had tonight, that's clearly in our planning documents, and we know who's going to share the screen, who's going to speak, and what materials are going to be used. And then we've got a list of roles. You can see top left, we've got a host. These are the sort of technical roles. You need a host in Zoom and then co-hosts. It's really important to have troublemakers so that the person presenting is not also having to look at their phones or check emails. Really nice to have some photography. So we have a photographer and so on. Speakers, moderators, team support. The more people you've got in the team who can just send private chat messages to people on the call, just make people feel welcome and part of the event, works really well. And yeah, finally, how we plan, we also send out reminders, participant list and follow up. I think I talked about that. The reminders is really important. And we learned that you need to send the Zoom code 2 hours before. So it's really top of people's email list. It's not buried, because as soon as you make it hard to join, people won't join. So that's a little how we plan. And then the final couple of slides, one on what we don't do. What we don't do is have long inputs, because if you want to listen to 45 minutes of somebody talking, you can just find that documentary at a professional level on whatever channel you like. So you have to make it unique, and I think the uniqueness comes from breaking it into small chunks and having a lot of interactions. We also don't offer Q&As in large groups. I think that's a real risk. It can work well. So if we had 4 speakers tonight and then a panel and people could ask whatever questions they like, the risk is you get some irrelevant questions asked, and some of the participants take it as an opportunity to speak at length, and then you're using everybody's time. So what we don't do is allow everybody to speak in large groups. But what we do, or what we're thinking about doing, if we can go to the last slide, is really trying to look forward. So what we'd like to learn also from the participants tonight, and have some discussions around, is what's next. We get Zoom, we understand this format works well, but what's next? How do we innovate, and how do we create hybrid events when the pandemic lets up and we can have a few people gathering and a few people at home? Is that going to be the future? So I'd love to learn more about that. And finally, I'd really like to learn about how to finance online events. It's harder to get people to pay to come to an online event, and it's even harder to find sponsors to pay for an online event. And for a lot of us on this call, we realize that running an event takes a lot of energy, a lot of time and resource, and that costs something. So we need to finance it. So I think that's a topic for discussion either tonight or later, but love to hear some more experience on how to finance online events. So with that, I'll hand back, but I wish you every success in running your meetings. It's not easy, but we've certainly learned a lot, and I feel we're making progress and getting better. So hopefully tonight's a good event, and we'll continue learning from each other. Thank you.